the book you wrote is on post-colonial masculine gender studies. So, what is post-colonial studies? What are post-colonial studies? And when I think of post-colonial, I think of it's over. I think of post-apocalyptic. I think of post-mortem.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
after the apocalypse. It's after death.
Mm.
But this post-colonialism kind of gives this feeling of, all right, colonialism's over. Congratulations, everyone. We did a good job and we freed everybody, and
Yeah.
hurrah. But I
Yeah.
don't get that from your work. What is post-colonialism in your understanding?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that would be one of the misunderstandings to think that it's just trying to look at what happens after a period of colonization. Post-colonialism is interested in analyzing and studying the processes that lead up to colonization, that result in colonization, and the transition from a colonial identity to a post-colonial identity, to what happens when a nation is able to gain its independence of the colonizer. So it's fairly complex at that point, because it's interested in the institutions of colonialism. It's interested in the way colonization results in the kind of construction of particular identities. It's interested in trying to analyze how those identities play out, where the interests lie. It's interested in trying to also understand what resistance might look like. So we often think that the process of colonization is a fairly straightforward one, and it's kind of unidirectional. It's colonizer to the colonized, and it's the colonized who simply submit themselves to the colonizing power. But the reality is that there is resistance, and what does that resistance actually look like? So post-colonial criticism is interested in trying to analyze all of those various aspects, and uses a variety of different techniques and methodologies to try and trace out some of the texture that one finds in a sort of in coloniality, I suppose, if we wanted to kind of have a catch term for the thing. So it certainly doesn't refer to only what happens after, or assuming that even in a moment of independence, that there is nothing left of a colonial mindset that still manages to work its way into this new independent nation or country.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so in a way, would you say that post-colonialism could even be us realizing colonialism, naming it for what it is, and saying, okay, here's a reality, and how do we move towards liberation, or how do we move towards a post
Yeah,
a
yeah,
post-colonial in the sense of post-apocalyptic? How can we move to an out of colonialism? Would you
right.
say that?
I mean, I think there's an element of that. I think the point of applying a post-colonial critique is to understand the logic of colonialism, and to also see how it continues to exert itself, and therefore also interested in trying to move beyond that. So what does it actually look like to no longer think like a colonial entity or a colonized people, subject people? Um, yeah. So the sort of goal is, how do we actually construct a new identity beyond the bounds of a colonial mindset? And I think the other thing that I think is quite important is that even when we talk about post-colonialism, we need to recognize that it is given different expression as colonialism is. It's given different expression in different contexts and different times in history. So I used the example of Alexander the Great. We could cite the example of the Roman Empire and so on, and any sort of movement towards trying to occupy and declare dominance over all other peoples. Each of those give expression to a form of colonial thinking, to a form of imperial thinking, and so there are similarities, but we need to also just note that they are all different at the end of the day. So we can't. It's not just a straightforward, let's read one version or expression of colonialism or imperialism and assume that whatever happens in that moment in history applies to all other like moments. There's similarities to be sure, but each moment is its own moment in a sense, and we need to just pay attention to the various ways in which that gives expression to a particular kind of colonial thinking.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're. Yeah, I mean, I think even if you look at the biblical empires, or the empires during the time of the Bible,
Yeah,
they all function very, very differently.
yeah,
And you see them. All right, they're supposed to pay taxes to Babylon. They don't pay. They go into Babylon. The
yeah,
Assyrians wiped out the northern tribes,
yeah,
and then you have the Roman Empire is doing it completely differently, and the Persians, they sent the people back. So there's
yeah,
everybody's got their own unique way of doing empire, I guess.
yeah,
Their own way of
exactly.
colonializing people in ways that they think will be the most long-lasting, most effective
Yeah,
way of doing it. What do you say?
yeah, I would say I'd agree with that. Yeah.